Chapter 11. Defeating Feng Dang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Chu Yunfan and Feng Dang arrived at the sparring zone, Feng Dang stepped forth and charged as soon as they got into their starting positions. Luring the tiger. He was like a savage with both fists spread wide. His fists were like a ferocious tiger's upper and lower jaw, charging at Chu Yunfan's head and chest. He was too fast. Many girls in the class even screamed. They could see that Feng Dang did not plan on holding back at all. The two punches were clearly at his tier 0.9 level. If one was to get hit by those, the consequences would be terrible. At that moment, Chu Yunfan lifted both his arms and blocked them right in front of his face. Bang! Surprisingly, he had managed to defend himself from both of Feng Dang's fists. Chu Yunfan merely smiled slightly. Class monitor, what's the rush? He was fearless when fighting the rather unfair battle. Indeed, he was quite excited. I can't believe you can block my attack. You've recently improved, but you made a mistake by daring to show off before me. Feng Dang smirked and took another step forward. He was like a sharp arrow let loose, and he swung his fist like a spear. He understood the strategy of being swift, accurate, and ruthless. Feng Dang, you're petty. I merely contradicted you this morning and you're taking a shot at me. Didn't you call yourself a genius? Chu Yunfan roared, you cultivated for so many months, but you've only reached the competent stage. How dare you say that you're a genius? I think you're just a good nothing. As he spoke, Chu Yunfan charged with both fists well. It was also the devilish tiger punch. He was using the same technique as Feng Dang. Bang! 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 Both of them started an intense battle. Feng Dang's attacks were cruel, quick, and precise. He was familiar with the essence of the devilish tiger punch. Everyone knew that his family was wealthy, so this was nothing to him. It made perfect sense given that he had hired a private coach to teach him martial arts. What astounded them was that Chu Yunfan was defending all of his attacks. He did not suffer from any disadvantage. Moreover, he was very familiar with the use of the devilish tiger punch. He was no weaker than Feng Dang. That was what shocked them most. This was Chu Yunfan's first time learning the devilish tiger punch. He merely watched Qin Wu demonstrate it a few times before picking it up. Even if his memory and ability to comprehend were outstanding, he should have only been at the elemental stage. The reason being, one could not just memorize martial skills. They would have to practice repeatedly to make it instinctive for their body so it would be smooth when they performed it. Whatever the reason, Chu Yunfan was displaying exactly that. In the beginning, he was clearly unfamiliar with it, and his body had yet to get used to using the devilish tiger punch. However, his performance was quickly getting smoother and smoother, as if he had practiced for a few months. Chu Yunfan and Feng Dang were moving increasingly faster, and the match was intensifying. Within a few short breaths, they had collided head-on many times. Very soon, many could tell that Chu Yunfan was definitely taking shots at Feng Dang. No matter which technique Feng Dang used, Chu Yunfan would use the same technique on him. He attacked instead of defending and was pretty good at it, surprisingly. They were both attacking quickly, accurately, and savagely. Whenever the pair of them paused, the crowd could clearly see that both of their arms were covered in bruises and had even started bleeding. That was the risk of real combat. Even if it was not a battle of life and death, it was easy for one to be injured all over. Neither of them had the upper hand. They're so powerful. Chu Yunfan is the crazy one. I can't believe he's on par with the class monitor. I get it now. No wonder Mu Junfei lost. They're on a completely different level. I must be hallucinating. Chu Yunfan's understanding of the devilish tiger punch is on par with Feng Dang. Did he learn it before as well? That's impossible. His family is so poor. How could he afford to learn it? At the side of the sparring zone, Mu Zhenfei was turning pale as he watched Chu Yunfan battle. Initially, he had refused to admit anything. He had thought Chu Yunfan defeated him by catching him off guard. However, he realized how mistaken he was when he saw Chu Yunfan fighting Feng Dang. Indeed, there was a huge gap in their ability. Though they were both at joint popping, the disparity was there. There was nothing he could do to pretend otherwise. Standing aside, Qin Wu's eyes were beaming brighter and brighter as he watched the duo spar. He was not looking at Feng Dang but Chu Yunfan as he leaped continuously. He did not expect to have such a genius among the students he taught. Feng Dang had learned the devilish tiger punch before, so it made sense that he had entered the competent stage. On the other hand, Chu Yunfan had just learned it. His eyes were so sharp that he could tell that Chu Yunfan was unfamiliar with the devilish tiger punch at first but was now able to perform it at the competent stage. The time he needed to get used to it was incredibly short. He had seen countless geniuses. There were many that could memorize a technique just by looking at it once, as well as those who had photographic memories. Nevertheless, memorizing a technique from a glance did not mean that one could perform it. That was not the idea. As it was, Chu Yunfan had shattered the old idea. That being said, he shook his head and thought to himself, it's a pity. No matter how fast he can learn a martial skill, internal energy is the root. Indeed, that he only reached joint popping at this age made him quite ordinary. Maybe he can be specially trained in the future. In any case, he soon realized one thing. The entire time Chu Yunfan battled Feng Dang, he did not show any signs of fatigue at all. In reality, if one was to perform the devilish tiger punch seriously instead of just swinging one's arms, it would exhaust one's physical strength. Despite this, Chu Yunfan's breathing had remained stable throughout the battle. Clearly, he still had the strength to go on fighting. Ordinary martial artists who were at tier 6 would have exhausted their physical strength after performing the devilish tiger punch a few times. That was the disadvantage Gao Hongji had mentioned. Even if Feng Dang could suppress his power to tier 6, his physical strength was several times more powerful than someone at tier 6. It was surprising that Chu Yunfan was not at a disadvantage in that aspect at all. That was what shocked Qin Wu the most. This student is something else. It was his first time really observing this ordinary student that he usually would not notice at all. The battle had set Chu Yunfan's passion ablaze. A killer instinct filled his head as he threw one punch after another at Feng Dang. The knuckles on both his fists were bleeding, and blood dripped whenever he threw a punch. Whatever else, he felt incredible, as if the blood in his body was boiling. The more he fought, the clearer his head became. He had displayed the advantage of the mighty Eternal Emperor method. True energy was flowing endlessly in his body. He did not feel physically exhausted at all and yelled, "Hey, hey, hey. Let's fight more, mighty class monitor. Is this all you've got?" Meanwhile, Feng Dang, who was across from him, felt extremely irritated. This was wholly different from the scenario he had expected. He assumed he could completely overwhelm Chu Yunfan and did not expect that he would not have the upper hand. Meanwhile, Chu Yunfan was getting more and more excited as they fought. He could not believe that Chu Yunfan was pressuring him and dared to challenge him over and over again. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed he was. A flaw appeared out of nowhere. Actually, it was not considered a flaw, but to Chu Yunfan, it was an opening. Almost immediately, Chu Yunfan, seemingly in a battle frenzy, seized the opportunity and threw out a punch. Ferocious Tiger's Heart Plow. The punch landed straight on Feng Dang's chest. Subsequently, Feng Dang released a devastating scream and was sent flying. It sounded as if it took a long time, but in reality, it happened in just a moment. The battle that seemed so intense that it would last until the next day had come to its conclusion in the blink of an eye. It was faster than anyone had expected. The victory was decided when they snapped back to their senses. That this has got to be a joke. That's not Mu Zhenfei but the class monitor. I must be hallucinating. This is impossible. At that moment, all of the students were stunned. They could not accept what had happened before them. Although all Chu Yunfan had done was overwhelm and defeat Feng Dang, it had completely turned the way they viewed him upside down. It would have made sense if Gao Hongji or the vice-monitor, Tang Xiu, had defeated Feng Dang. Instead, it was Chu Yunfan, a student whose name they might not have even remembered before. Chu Yunfan looked calm. He was not excited just because he had just defeated Feng Dang. The burning passion he felt earlier had passed. At the moment, he really felt the pain in his arms which were both wounded all over. Most of them were bruises, but some parts of his flesh had been torn open. Although he was several times more powerful than anyone at the same stage, Feng Dang's stage was far beyond his. Therefore, it was inevitable that he would be hurt. It was the price to pay for these battles. It was also the reason why he tried his best to avoid being in a real battle before. As soon as he injured himself, he would need to pay a great price for treatment. However, he could not hold back this time. Feng Dang had humiliated his parents, and he could never allow that. Though he was lying on the ground after being defeated, Feng Dang suddenly roared and did a kick up as Chu Yunfan was turning around. He stood straight and charged directly at Chu Yunfan's back. Faster! 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 Feng Dang was more than twice as fast as he was before. His face was ferocious and his eyes were bloodshot. He was not suppressing his power at all. The only thing he wanted was revenge. Bang! As Feng Dang was going to hit Chu Yunfan, a hand grabbed his fist. It was Qin Wu, countering at the critical moment. Bang! Qin Wu threw Feng Dang forcefully, tossing him hard on the ground. Why are you being such a scumbag? Are you a sore loser? Qin Wu asked with an icy expression. Did I teach you guys martial arts or did I ask you to attack your classmates sneakily from behind? At that moment, Feng Dang finally came to his senses. He snapped out of his rage from earlier and got up to say, I'm sorry, coach. I made a mistake. He dared not argue with Qin Wu. He merely stared fiercely at Chu Yunfan and walked aside to get treatment for his injury. Chapter 12. Popular Alchemist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Yunfan walked to the side as well. Gao Hongji brought the healing spray over immediately and sprayed it directly on his arms. The burning pain was immediately replaced with a cooling sensation and the wounds recovered at lightning speed. You're really something. That was amazing. Ha ha ha. I've never seen him surrender like that before. Gao Hongji said with a wink as he patted Chu Yunfan's shoulder. At that moment, the rest of their classmates seemed to have just snapped back to their senses. They appeared to be in a state of disbelief. Even Vice-Monitor Tang Xiu's eyes widened as she looked at Chu Yunfan in surprise. Everyone, you guys have just seen a real battle. The devilish tiger punch's power is great, especially for all of you. So please be careful. Qin Wu said. He did not have much of a reaction to the duo's injuries. He was a retired soldier and had seen much worse, so he had long since been desensitized. You guys can ask me if you have any questions about cultivation. Now, I'll explain the important points of cultivation. Qin Wu began explaining the common issues that came up when cultivating the devilish tiger punch and the ways to solve them. Those were the most precious experiences. If this happened in previous eras, it would have remained a secret, but in modern times, many people would make their knowledge public. Some martial arts cultivating information would be uploaded online, available to download for a fee. They could make money from that while also spreading martial arts knowledge. It had only taken humans a few centuries to reach their current achievements after discovering the ancient Zenith civilization. A new out-of-the-box perspective played an important role. Chu Yunfan sat with his legs crossed while circulating his energy using the mighty Eternal Emperor method. While recalling his earlier battle, he gathered true energy onto both arms to accelerate the healing process. Although it was just a battle, it had been highly beneficial for him because Feng Dang's understanding of the devilish tiger punch was similar to his. He could sense Feng Dang's fierce eyes on him at the other side of the classroom. He was staring at him. He knew he had offended Feng Dang this time, but he did not care about that. The battle had boosted his confidence significantly. What did it matter if he had offended the class genius? As long as he was given enough time, he could step on everyone beneath his feet. The lesson passed by quickly. By the time the students were dismissed, the wounds on Chu Yunfan's body were almost healed. The medical standards developed by modern technology were beyond imagination compared to the common era. Alright, that's all for today's lesson. Class dismissed. It will be a long holiday tomorrow and the day after. You guys can practice the devilish tiger punch at home. Qin Wu said, "Oh, yeah. Chu Yunfan, please come to my office." Chu Yunfan felt rather strange, as Qin Wu had never spoken to him alone before. He was just too ordinary back then, so Qin Wu had no interest in talking to him. Chu Yunfan followed Qin Wu to his office. Sir, why did you ask me to come here? Chu Yunfan asked in a straightforward manner. Qin Wu glanced at Chu Yunfan and said, "Everyone, including myself, underestimated you before. I thought you had average abilities. However, though your talent does appear to be average, you learn martial skills very fast. I suppose this talent of yours wasn't discovered as you had never come into contact with martial skills before. Everyone talks about talents. In reality, there are many types of talents. Martial Tao has many categories of natural gifts. Some are born with an amazing ability to comprehend. Some have a knack for inferring martial skill cultivation, while some have a magnificent physique. They're born with immense strength, whereby they are more powerful than people who cultivate even when they don't do so themselves. And you must have a talent for martial skill cultivation." Qin Wu went behind his desk and sat on his office chair as he continued, "Forget that you were average in the past. You shouldn't bother since you have a talent for this. How did we humans flourish to the point that we even have immigrants occupying massive areas in the Kunlun realm? It's because we changed the narrow-minded method of recruiting talents in the past. We recruit every kind of talent now." Qin Wu looked at Chu Yunfan and asked, "You're average when it comes to internal energy cultivation. Given that you were born an ordinary man and your family can't provide you with sufficient cultivation resources, your talent might be wasted. Have you considered joining the military?" Joining the military? Chu Yunfan was stunned for a moment. He had never expected Qin Wu to raise such a suggestion. That's right. Although humans occupy a huge area in the Kunlun realm, the truth is, we're always at risk. Even on Earth, we are left with a few base cities, while the rest of the world has become the territory of the monsters. That's not even counting the monsters in the Kunlun realm, which are even more fearsome than the ones on Earth. The military is the main line of defense for humanity. Naturally, the military must recruit the best of humankind from numerous fields. Qin Wu said slowly, "Personally, I feel, with your family background, you definitely can't be like Feng Dang and Gao Hongji. Your family can't provide you with a large amount of resources, but the military can. As long as you're talented, the military can provide you with whatever need. Your prospects would be no worse than the graduates from normal universities. In fact, they'd be even better. Moreover, you have a talent for martial skill cultivation. Genuine combat will only develop you even further. Where else but the battlefield can you get the taste of real combat again? Although I've retired, I still have some connections in the military. If you're willing, even if you don't get into the martial arts stream, I can recommend that they accept you. And if you perform exceptionally in the military, they might request a place for you at Federation University." Hearing that, Chu Yunfan fell silent. He knew Qin Wu had said all this out of kindness. In modern society, apart from the graduates of the top 10 schools, the soldiers from the military were the most sought after prospects. On the other hand, the death rate was high too. Nevertheless, those that survived would stand out in society. If they managed to become a retired sergeant, they could be like Qin Wu and coach at a school. Although it was not considered exceptional, it was much better than office workers at regular companies. Therefore, those who were unwilling to live a regular life were eager to get into the military. Nonetheless, not just anyone could enlist. Standards for recruitment were not as strict as those for the top 10 schools, but they were still beyond the capabilities of ordinary human beings. If this happened in the past, he would definitely have said yes to such an opportunity right away. He was ready to sacrifice himself, no matter how hard it was, just to stand out. That being said, things were different now. He inherited the Alchemy Emperor's memories and his abilities had been augmented. The geniuses could not compare to him now. He could fight for an even brighter future. Naturally, his desire to get into the military had dropped significantly. Almost immediately, Chu Yunfan responded with determination, "Sir, I want to get into university." Looking at Chu Yunfan, Qin Wu could not help sighing as he said, "Sure, I won't force you to do something you don't want to. However, if you change your mind, you can always come to me. The military needs talent like you." "Thank you, sir." Chu Yunfan thanked him sincerely. He could tell that Qin Wu was doing this for his own good. "Why are you thanking me? I'm your teacher. It's only natural that I want the best for you guys. You're on tier 6 physical stage now. Since you want to get into a university, I'm sure you're not interested in studying liberal arts. You have less than a month, so you must seize whatever time you have left." Qin Wu said, "I suppose you did not have the money to buy better supplements. From now on, if you want to break through, you can only depend on consuming body refining pills. I'm sure you've heard of the body refining pill. I know it's a medicinal pill that martial artists in the ancient Zenith civilization used to refine their bodies." Chu Yunfan nodded. He knew it very well because he had the Alchemy Emperor's inherited memories in his head, and those memories had records of the body refining pill. It was one of the pills that the Alchemy Emperor learned to refine when he had just started working with medicinal pills. The function of the body refining pill, as the name suggested, was to refine and strengthen one's body while improving one's physical qualities. Although it was not a high-grade medicinal pill, one was required to eat it in large quantities. In modern times, one such pill cost more than 100,000 coins, which was equivalent to Chu Yunfan's parents' annual salary including their extra income. His family could not afford to spend money on this, so he had only heard of it but had never seen it. During the Alchemy Emperor's time, the body refining pill was expensive, but it was not as costly as it had become. It was equivalent to about 10,000 coins in the current currency. In modern times, apart from the materials that had to be transported all the way from the Kunlun realm, one of the major reasons for this was the small number of alchemists that could manufacture the body refinement pill. In the Alchemy Emperor's days, there were already very few alchemists. Not everyone had the talent for alchemy, but at least they had the entire inherited wisdom of their alchemists. However, the alchemists' knowledge that had been excavated was incomplete. Some of the common medicinal formulas from back then had been lost. Certain divine pills become legendary. Without the complete knowledge, the number of alchemists in modern times was less than 1/10 what it had been in the Alchemy Emperor's memory. This had caused a further surge in the price of these pills. Although the Federation government had been trying their best to mass-produce such basic medicinal pills, they still could not do it at the moment. "I know that your family won't be able to afford the expenses of cultivation. You've rapidly cultivated the devilish tiger punch, so I'd like to recommend you for a job. I think it's highly suitable for you. Are you interested?" Qin Wu asked. "What job do you mean, sir?" Chu Yunfan asked. "Well, it's my comrade. He has a daughter who is also in year 3 now. She's currently practicing the devilish tiger punch. She needs a sparring partner. You'll be paid by the hour, 500 coins per hour. How is that? Are you interested? Qin Wu said with a smile. Chu Yunfan was over the moon. A job that paid 500 coins per hour was higher than his parents' salary. He immediately replied, "Of course I'm interested." "Thank you, sir. May I know when I can start working?" "Ha ha ha, look at you, so eager. I'll give my comrade a call now. You can start right away if everything goes well." Saying this, Qin Wu immediately picked up his phone and made a call. Soon, a man was projected before him. The man had a burly body and looked like he was middle-aged. He wore a suit, but even through the projection, he radiated the aura of a formidable soldier. "Old Qin." The middle-aged man smiled slightly. "You usually never reach out except to ask for a favor." "What is it?" "Hey, old Lu, didn't you tell me that your precious daughter, Yushu, is lacking a sparring partner with whom to practice the devilish tiger punch? I happen to have a student who is rather talented in martial skill cultivation. He can be Yushu's sparring partner. What do you think?" Qin Wu said with a smirk. "I'm okay with that. Bring him here, but whether he's hired or not depends on Yushu. Anyway, I'm confident in whoever you recommend," the middle-aged man replied. "Sure, I'm hanging up. Go ahead with your day." Qin Wu hung up and turned to Chu Yunfan, saying, "You can go to his place after class today. I'll send you his address." "Thank you, sir." Chu Yunfan said in all sincerity. "Don't worry about it. Do your best and you'll be all right." Chapter 13. Breaking through the devilish tiger punch on the spot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Yunfan got off the bus, and his eyes were greeted by a large and luxurious community. The Spirit Moon Community, one of the renowned high-class communities in Calm Ocean City. Anyone who can afford to live here has a net worth of several billion at least. TSK, they're really extraordinary," Chu Yunfan said, looking at the opulent neighborhood before him. In his eyes, the entire community was covered in a lingering sea of clouds. There was a massive spirit gathering formation circulating within, making the spirit energy in the community at least 10 times thicker than elsewhere. The local residents would live long and healthy lives even if they did not cultivate. Cultivating would increase the effect even further. Huge villas were scattered all over and there were mountains and rivers around. It was an affluent community. Each villa cost at least 10 million or even tens of millions. Nevertheless, he knew that people who lived here were not the really wealthy ones. The richest inhabitants of Calm Ocean City would buy the entire mountain and develop it into their own private kingdom. It would be a vast manor with an astronomical price. That being said, although it was not the wealthiest area, poor families like the Chus would have to save up for years to amount to the net worth of the residents living in the Spirit Moon community. He took his time to get in. Very soon, a man wearing a black suit and sunglasses walked out of the community's entrance and approached him. After taking a look at him, the man asked, "Hello. May I know if you're Mr. Chu Yunfan?" "That's me." Chu Yunfan nodded. "Excellent. Please follow me. Our young mistress has just finished class and asked me to pick you up," the man replied. Chu Yunfan followed the man and entered the community without issue. They passed by one villa after another and finally arrived at a particularly massive one. Once inside, there were bodyguards in similar black suits everywhere and many servants handling their own tasks. Chu Yunfan was taken to a large training room. Inside was a young lady wearing martial arts attire. She was leaping up and down, and she was very agile as she moved her body. Chu Yunfan knew at a glance that the young lady was practicing the devilish tiger punch. The young lady's devilish tiger punch was majestic and smooth. Although she was only at the competent stage, she was obviously more familiar than Feng Dang with the techniques and was also more powerful. Clearly, she had gotten to the peak of the competent stage. She was merely a step away from reaching the impeccable stage. Meanwhile, Chu Yunfan was surprised to see that, as she punched, her fists had a faint layer of true energy covering them. She had clearly activated the Qi in her body. When someone got to the Qi stage, they would have unlimited true energy and could wrap it around their fists. This would raise the power of their attack significantly. She was the client that Coach Qin Wu introduced him to, the young mistress of Calm Ocean City's Lu Group, Lu Yushu. According to the documents that Qin Wu gave him, Lu Yushu was someone extraordinary. She showcased impressive talent from a young age and got into Calm Ocean City's #1 high school. It was different from the lesser-known #13 high school that he attended. Calm Ocean City's #1 high school was the best high school in the city. It was even considered one of the most notable schools in all of Donghua City. Those who got into it were the cream of the crop of Calm Ocean City's high school students. It was no wonder that she had completed the cultivation of the physical stage and stepped into the Qi stage even though they were around the same age. "Miss, I've brought him here." The bodyguard got Chu Yunfan to wait aside. He only spoke when Lu Yushu had stopped. The young lady looked approximately 16 or 17. She wore a bright red martial arts outfit, the slim fit complementing her beautiful body. She had skin as fair as snow and her features were sharp. She would be the campus belle no matter where she went. Lu Yushu picked up a towel and wiped off her sweat. She then walked to Chu Yunfan and said, "You're the person that Uncle Qin recommended." "Yes, it was the coach who recommended me." Chu Yunfan nodded. "Uncle Qin said that you got to the competent stage right after you started learning the devilish tiger punch." "I don't believe it. I've just started practicing that and I only got to the competent stage now. I only brought you here to try because I didn't want to say no to Uncle Qin." Lu Yushu's voice was sweet and modest, but her tone was extremely cold. This guy was the same age as her and she did not trust him at all. She could tell from a glance that Chu Yunfan had not even reached the Qi stage. She was suspicious of this genius that her Uncle Qin talked about. "Did Uncle Qin say why he sent you here?" Lu Yushu asked after raising her pretty brows. "He did. I'm here to be your sparring partner," Chu Yunfan said. "You should leave. You're not even at the Qi stage yet. You're not worthy of being my sparring partner at all." Lu Yushu spoke without holding back. "I'm worried I might kill you by mistake." Lu Yushu turned around and walked to the middle of the room after she was done speaking. She was ready to proceed with practicing the devilish tiger punch. She felt that it was nice of her to be willing to meet Uncle Qin's student. "Ms. Lu, I suppose you're only looking for a sparring partner to practice the devilish tiger punch with. The understanding of techniques has nothing to do with my cultivation base." Chu Yunfan noticed that Lu Yushu was leaving, and he was unwilling to give up on such a rare and rewarding opportunity. He hastily said, "Forgive me for being straightforward, but Ms. Lu, you don't understand the devilish tiger punch the way I do." "What did you say?" As expected, Lu Yushu turned around upon hearing that. Her beautiful eyes were staring daggers at Chu Yunfan. She said, "You better not spout nonsense. Otherwise, I'll teach you a painful lesson even if Uncle Qin recommended you. You need to understand that you can't just say whatever you want. It's simple really. If I was just spouting nonsense, you'll find out as soon as we spar." Chu Yunfan said directly, "Although my power isn't on par with yours, if you're willing to suppress it, can't you practice the devilish tiger punch with me? All you want is a sparring partner to break through your stagnation with the devilish tiger punch." Lu Yushu did not expect Chu Yunfan to be so good at talking. She thought about it carefully and realized that he was right. However, she still said, "If that's the case, I'll give you a chance." But you must understand that I've entered the Chi-C stage, so I've completed the preliminary refinement of my body. Even if I suppressed the true energy, you're no match for me based on our physique alone. Don't worry about it. We'll find out after we spar. Chu Yunfan replied. If that's how it is, I won't hold back. Lu Yushu stepped forward. Her beautiful, slender body was extremely agile. She charged at Chu Yunfan and performed the ferocious tiger's heart plow. She was like a spear thrusting forcefully at Chu Yunfan's heart. Chu Yunfan was calm. After defeating Mu Zhenfei and Feng Dang consecutively that day, his skill in actual combat was elevating at a stunning rate. He focused his eyes and formed 5 fingers into a fist. He performed the same technique and charged without holding back. It was extremely fearsome, like a ferocious tiger plowing one's heart. Bang! The duo's fists collided, with Chu Yunfan's arriving first even though he attacked later. The punch he had thrown crashed into Lu Yushu's. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Stomp. Both of them retreated at the same time. The only difference was that Lu Yushu merely took 1 step back while Chu Yunfan took 3. Although she did not use true energy, she had completed the refinement of her body. Her physical strength was much greater than Chu Yunfan's. Interesting. Surprise flashed through Lu Yushu's beautiful eyes. Although she did not use true energy in her punch, she had performed at her full capacity in other aspects. Many people at the same stage as her were forced to retreat when they sparred. Although Chu Yunfan was merely at the physical stage, he managed to remain still after taking a few steps back. It proved that although he was ordinary, the refinement of his body was solid. She began to think that perhaps Uncle Qin did not recommend just anyone to her. This Chu Yunfan was indeed pretty capable. Let's go again. I'll need to see how powerful you are if you're to be my sparring partner. Lu Yushu called out softly and thrust her fair fist into the air. It was directed at Chu Yunfan's face. Meanwhile, Chu Yunfan, who had made up his mind to stay, took a step out, going forward instead of retreating. He was confronting the difficult situation he faced. Bang! 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 Their fists collided again and again. Within 10 short seconds, they had smashed together dozens of times. Their movements were fast, accurate, and ruthless. Every attack was savage and showed no mercy. Very soon, there were some bruises on Lu Yushu's fair arms. Contrasting with her snow-white skin, the dark bruises seemed especially grotesque. Despite all that, she did not relax just yet. She threw the devilish tiger punch over and over. Meanwhile, her opponent, Chu Yunfan, was worse off. Both of his arms were trailing blood. His injuries were much more severe compared to Lu Yushu's. There was a disparity between Lu Yushu and him after all. As time went on, he was being thoroughly beaten. He was bearing the brunt of each collision. Fortunately, he had diligently cultivated using the eternal mighty emperor method, which made his body several times stronger than someone else at the same stage. Without this, any other martial artist at Tier 6 physical stage, joint popping would have been defeated much earlier. Although that was the case, he had been fighting strenuously the whole time. He could only clench his teeth and bite the bullet. I don't believe it. Chu Yunfan screamed internally. Suddenly, he seemed to have entered a state that he had never been in before. In his eyes, Lu Yushu's movements seemed to have slowed down now. Her physical strength was greater than his, leave alone her speed. The speed of her attacks left him dizzy, but she seemed to have drastically slowed down now. The shadow of her fists seemed perfect at first, but he could now see their flaws. He attacked those flaws almost without hesitation. Lu Yushu noticed something different immediately. Indeed, Chu Yunfan's punch frequency remained lower than hers because her physique was still superior to his. However, the accuracy of his punches was much higher than before. He was attacking her flaws each time. She had not even noticed them before. Instead of feeling surprised, she was pleased. This was why she wanted to hire a sparring partner. She could only discover her flaws in real battles. Nevertheless, she soon noticed that Chu Yunfan's accuracy was still increasing. From being beaten by her at the beginning, a casual punch from Chu Yunfan would panic her now. She knew that Chu Yunfan's understanding of the devilish tiger punch was elevating. When the accuracy was raised to an extreme level, Chu Yunfan's aura underwent a fundamental change. His punch broke through the shadow of Lu Yushu's punch and was about to smash directly into her face. It was too quick. The strike was as fast as lightning and the stance was powerful like rumbling thunder. Even the bodyguard who was standing aside exclaimed. Just as he was about to intervene, the punch stopped an inch before Lu Yushu's face. Chapter 14. Giving Lu Yushu pointers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The gust from Chu Yunfan's punch blew the silky black fringe from Lu Yushu's fair forehead. Her pupils shrunk slightly and her cheeks blushed. She was pretty when she blushed. Chu Yunfan's move had left her in a daze. She could not believe that she failed to react immediately to his punch as it arrived before her majestically. The bodyguard who was standing aside could not help but feel relieved when he saw that Chu Yunfan had held back. He recalled his aura as if nothing had happened. Chu Yunfan relaxed and stood with his arms at his back. His aura had changed so much from before, as if he had become a different person. Lu Yushu was not angry that he had stunned her. On the contrary, she was rather excited. She said, I suppose you've just broken through. I saw videos in the virtual world where the martial arts master performed an impeccable staged devilish tiger punch. It was similar to yours. Hearing that, Chu Yunfan nodded and said, Indeed, I comprehended all the questions I had in that instant. I reached the impeccable stage at once. Under the immense pressure Lu Yushu placed on him, he entered a mysterious state and finally broke through to the impeccable stage. He understood the depth of the devilish tiger punch at the impeccable stage. He had just broken through, and his power had elevated by a level. He breached the shadow of Lu Yushu's fist and almost hurt her. Naturally, that was what that bodyguard thought he was going to do. Chu Yunfan's devilish tiger punch had broken through to the impeccable stage and the techniques had become instinctive, so he could control them as he wished. He could recall them and release them. He definitely would not hurt anyone by mistake. He was exclaiming internally as well. Lu Yushu truly was the young mistress of a wealthy family. He could not believe that she could afford to watch martial arts masters' martial Dao videos. In the Kunlun era, martial arts were widely spread. Unlike the practice of keeping everything to themselves in the ancient Zenith civilization, it was normal that martial arts masters would upload videos of their techniques on the internet for others to learn, especially basic martial skills like the devilish tiger punch. The various martial arts masters had uploaded up to 100 types of martial skills, though access to those videos required payment. An hour-long video would cost up to 1,000 coins. Only the rich could afford to spend that kind of money. Although 1,000 was not a lot, when one watched many videos, it would amount to a great fortune. I heard from Uncle Chin that you just learned the devilish tiger punch today. Did you really break through to the impeccable stage within a day? I didn't believe it at first, but I do now, seeing that you managed to break through during the battle. Perhaps your talent in this aspect is exceedingly high. Even higher than the praise Uncle Chin gave you. Lu Yushu said. Although cultivation books always mention breaking through in battles, a mere 1 in a million could actually do it. Not only that, it was only made possible by chance. She had been going to famous schools since young, and she had met many of those so-called geniuses, but she had never heard of anyone who could break through in battle. Indeed, I just learned it today. I didn't have the resources to learn the devilish tiger punch before this. On the other hand, I assume Ms. Lu isn't lacking money, so why are you only learning the devilish tiger punch now? Chu Yunfan heard her say she had only been studying the devilish tiger punch for 10 days. It's for the stream division in a month. By then, there will not only be exams in cultural studies but also classes for real combat. I mainly wanted to cultivate internal energy with all my might before this, so I never cultivated martial skills. Lu Yushu explained. If this had happened before they sparred, she might not have bothered explaining to Chu Yunfan. Dragons do not live with snakes. She would not speak this much to someone so ordinary in all aspects. Before this, we were the protected flowers in the conservatory. We didn't have any chances in real battles, so it didn't matter whether we learned martial skills or not. Nevertheless, it'll be different after the stream division. Lu Yushu said, in the regular schools that you guys go to, reaching tier 7 physical stage, blood renewal is the factor that determines whether you can get into the martial arts stream. However, the martial arts stream is divided into regular class and elite class. With my level of internal energy, it's a no-brainer that I'll get into the martial arts stream. But I want to get into my school's elite class for the martial arts stream. I want to fight for top 10, top 3, and even number 1 in my school's elite class. Lu Yushu extended a fair finger and said ambitiously, my next goal will be getting into Federation University, but do you know how low the acceptance rate is? I must try my best to be in my school's top 10, even top 10 in Calm Ocean City, to guarantee my spot in Federation University. Of course, the first goal is to get into the elite class of the martial arts stream. Apart from the cultivation of internal energy, real fighting skills are the most important thing for me. It seems out of nowhere, but that's the reason why I want to cultivate the devilish tiger punch. It's not just me. Many of my classmates are doing the same thing. Hearing her explanation, Chu Yunfan understood. Although they had both just cultivated the devilish tiger punch, they had completely different reasons for doing so. He was doing it because his talent was horrible. He had to make the most of the time to cultivate internal energy for a chance to get into the martial arts stream so that he could stand out. Meanwhile, Lu Yushu was cultivating internal energy to get into Federation University. She only recently had time to cultivate the devilish tiger punch. It appeared similar, but in reality, the difference was like heaven and earth. This talent of yours is hard to come by. However, it's a pity that your level of internal energy is just average. Otherwise, you might be seen as exceptional. Lu Yushu said with some pity, shaking her head. Although the cultivation of martial skills was important, no matter what, internal energy was the root of martial Tao. Ms. Lu, I suppose I've passed the test now? Chu Yunfan asked. You can say you've passed the test. I'm sure Uncle Qin told you already that you'll be given 500 coins for sparring with me for an hour, and it'll be 2 hours per day. Plus, I'll give you more if I can break through to the impeccable stage. Lu Yushu said, the thing that I lack the most now is time. If you can save me time, I'll be generous with the fee. Lu Yushu walked to the side of the sparring zone as she spoke and took out 2 bottles of healing sprays from one of the tiny medical boxes. She tossed one to Chu Yunfan while she opened the cap of the other one and sprayed it on the bruises on her arms. She was familiar with handling such injuries. Chu Yunfan did not hold back and sprayed it directly on his arms. He soon felt a cooling sensation. His wounds were obviously healing. He laid down his head and looked at the healing spray. It was the upgraded version. It was a few times more expensive than the one he used and had a stronger effect. He was no longer in pain. He could even see the bloody wounds vanishing at a speed visible to the naked eye. He was secretly dumbfounded. These kids from wealthy families had much more martial arts resources than he did as an ordinary person. With such a healing spray, one could almost practice real battles indefinitely. Naturally, their ability would elevate continuously. It was crazy to think that this was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to the advantages kids from powerful and wealthy families possessed. In the Kunlun era, everyone seemed to be equal because martial Tao was accessible to all. In reality, the gap between people was even greater than in the Common Era. You've just broken through, so I'm sure you've gained some insight. Please tell me. I've been stuck between the competent stage and the impeccable stage. I still can't reach the latter. Lu Yushu said. Envy flashed through her eyes when she looked at Chu Yunfan. Had she not seen it herself, she would not have believed that someone had such incredible talent for cultivation. Even if it was just a gift for martial skill cultivation, it was still remarkable enough. Chu Yunfan closed his eyes. He was shocked to find that his earlier battles were replaying clearly in his head. Since obtaining the Alchemy Emperor's memories, he realized that his own memory had become ridiculously accurate. In fact, it was photographic. It felt like he was watching 3D projections in his head. He clearly saw all of the details that he had not noticed earlier. Chu Yunfan only opened his eyes a while later and said, "Since you saw coaching videos of so many famous experts and masters, I suppose you already know the difference between the competent and impeccable stage. The competent stage would mean that you've mastered all the techniques and you can release the most power in each punch. Meanwhile, the impeccable stage is something else. You can combine all of the techniques freely instead of being restricted to the initial sequence. You can also change the techniques at will, recalling and releasing them, altering the strength of your blow, and so on. You'll be able to control them as you wish. That's the impeccable stage. In reality, you've mastered all of the techniques perfectly. It's just that you're restricting yourself a little when you change them. You can't recall and release like I'm capable of doing now. The truth is, there's no secret to it. Although I've never seen the coaching videos of those martial arts masters, I won't hide anything from you since I'm charging you a fee. The important thing isn't the so-called depth. There's nothing else you should do other than practice. After you've practiced changing techniques so much that it becomes instinctive, they can no longer restrict you. It's only a matter of time before you can recall and release them as you wish. Chu Yunfan explained. Lu Yushu nodded and said, "Yes, that's what I thought too. That's why I recruited a sparring partner. I suppose your injuries are almost healed now. Let's seize the moment and proceed with the practice now." "Sure, there's no problem with that. I'm always ready." Chu Yunfan waved his arms around. He should be fine now. The healing spray was much more powerful than the one he had at home. "Taste my fist, then." Lu Yushu threw out a punch. It was the ferocious tiger's heart plow again. It was fast and ruthless as it charged directly at Chu Yunfan's face. Chapter 15. Lu Yushu breaking through. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bang! 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 The two figures in the sparring zone clashed like two agile apes. There would be a low hum every time their fists passed each other by. The hum sounded like exploding landmines. One could tell that they were a young man and young lady of 16 or 17. They were Chu Yunfan and Lu Yushu. They fought fiercely. Although they were only sparring, nothing was prohibited besides killing their opponent. The duo would spar for at least 15 minutes each time. When ordinary people sparred with the devilish tiger punch so intensely, they would be panting hard. In this case, the physical strength of these two had stamina. Although their breathing began to grow heavy, they did not appear to be exhausted at all. Because Chu Yunfan's body was not as powerful as Lu Yushu's, he was thoroughly dominated before. However, it was different now. The battle was arduous, and Chu Yunfan could actually overwhelm her now. The speed and strength of his punches still could not match Lu Yushu's. This meant he could not strike as many times as she could, but amazingly, he could break her defenses each time he punched. With every one of his punches, he would panic her. The bodyguard had been watching from the side, and he did not dare to relax. The reason being that they had been fighting like that for over an hour. Apart from stopping every now and then to use the healing spray to recover their strength, they did not take any breaks at all. At that point, Lu Yushu and Chu Yunfan had all sorts of wounds and bruises on their arms. Such battles were very effective. Lu Yushu had already reached the peak of the competent stage and was merely a step away from the impeccable stage. With Chu Yunfan's continuous attacks and the pointers he gave her along the way, she was showing fewer and fewer flaws. She had become more familiar with switching between techniques at will. As she accumulated her experience, Lu Yushu started to feel almost like she was going to explode. Under the pressure of Chu Yunfan's attacks, she did not have the time to think of how to counter many of his techniques. She could only attack out of instinct. Just as Chu Yunfan had said, if she wanted to reach the impeccable stage, not only did she have to be familiar with mastering the techniques but also had to know them instinctively. Finally, Lu Yushu had performed everything that she had accumulated through practice. She had entered another stage. Initially, Chu Yunfan attacked her through her flaws, but those had gone away entirely. She could remedy the so-called flaws at any time because she had mastered all of the techniques. They came to her naturally. Without the restricted routine, the flaws and loopholes had naturally vanished. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Chu Yunfan was forced to withdraw a few steps before he could steady himself. Instead of being stunned, he was beaming with joy as he clapped and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Lu. You've now entered the impeccable stage of the devilish tiger punch." Lu Yushu took the healing spray the bodyguard passed over and sprayed it on both of her arms. The wounds and bruises looked terrifying on her snow-white arms. They covered her arms densely all over. Lu Yushu was very hard on herself and it came to cultivation. She had never complained about the pain even though her arms were badly injured. That made Chu Yunfan admire her. Envy. Coming from a wealthy family was not the only reason she achieved what she had. "It's thanks to you for sparring with me," Lu Yushu said. Excitement appeared on her pretty face. No matter how mature she presented herself, she was still a teenage girl after all. With the elevation of her devilish tiger punch, her strength in battle would be enhanced as well. She had a classmate who started learning it over half a year ago, and he had only gotten to impeccable stage after hiring many private coaches. Meanwhile, she achieved that after only 10 days. Naturally, the credit belonged to Chu Yunfan. "You're too kind, Ms. Lu." Chu Yunfan was using the healing spray too. A series of cooling sensations replaced the burning pain. Lu Yushu was being hard on herself by not stopping the training despite the wounds all over her arms. Of course, he would not stop either since he was her sparring partner. Moreover, he would obtain many rewards from such battles. He had just broken through to the impeccable stage earlier, and now he had completely stabilized himself. He was more than happy to have someone sparring with him, providing him with healing spray, and at the same time, paying him. As he fought and elevated himself, he had a deep realization at the same time. Although martial skills were important in the cultivation of martial Tao, internal energy was the root after all. Although Lu Yushu had suppressed her true energy, her physique was much greater than his. When she had stepped into the impeccable stage of the devilish tiger punch, she had almost regained her previous advantage, whereby she was suppressing him again. Before, he could fight back by searching for her flaws, but he could no longer do that. He could only confront her head-on, and he was far behind her when it came to this. "I wasn't being too kind. I've hired a private coach before, but he took a day off today. I'll fire him later," Lu Yushu said in a straightforward manner. "That coach isn't as good as you. Although I was only one step away from surpassing the competent stage and entering the impeccable stage before, it seems I would have needed at least half a month if it weren't you sparring with me, helping me break through. That private coach of mine would need a long time to notice an obvious flaw. In your presence, I feel like there's no way that I can hide. I had exposed all of my flaws. You noticed them one after another, and that's how I improved so fast." Naturally, Chu Yunfan knew what Lu Yushu was talking about. That being said, even he had no idea why her flaws were exposed so easily as soon as he focused. One could even say that in his eyes, the devilish tiger punch that Lu Yushu had performed was full of flaws from the beginning. I'm hiring you as my private coach now. I'll do up a contract later. Every day for the next month, you'll have to spend 2 hours cultivating the devilish tiger punch with me. Because of you, my plan has been brought forward, so I'm trying to see if I can break through to the perfection stage before the stream division exam. By then, I might be able to fight for the top 10 in school. Lu Yushu was a clear-cut person and never dragged things out. She proceeded to say, Uncle Chin initially told you that you'd be paid 500 per hour. Now I'll give you the treatment of a private coach. You'll be paid 3,000 per hour, so it'll be 6,000 per day. The contract will last around 30 days, which will add up to around 180,000. I'll pay your salary as long as you come to work on time every day. Chu Yunfan was overjoyed hearing that. He had been thinking of ways to make money to buy the body refining pill, but this meant he could earn enough simply by working there. Although it was only a month-long contract, he would get more than his parents would in a year. He was sure that he wanted to get into a good university and work toward becoming a martial artist. If he was to have a regular job, it would take years for him to make 180,000. He was not even an apprentice yet, but he was already earning so much money. He would make more and more in the future. By that point, he could surely make enough money to treat his sister's congenital gene defect. Ms. Lu, can I ask for the salary in advance? Chu Yunfan thought about it and decided to make the request. Pay you in advance. Why is that? Lu Yushu asked. I won't lie to you, Ms. Lu. I'm on tier 0.6 physical stage, joint popping now. I would like to ask for an advance to buy a body refining pill. Just like Ms. Lu, I want to get into the martial arts stream. We only have a month, so I don't have much time left to do that. Chu Yunfan told her his objective plainly. It was not a secret anyway. Lu Yushu nodded. That makes sense. I didn't think about that. Give me your bank account number later when we sign the contract. I'll transfer 100,000 to you first as the deposit for hiring you for a month. How does that sound to you? That was a big sum to Chu Yunfan, but to Lu Yushu, that was merely a few days' worth of pocket money. It was nothing at all. After all, she would have to pay Chu Yunfan sooner or later. She was just paying him a few days earlier. It was convenient for both sides. She never suspected that Chu Yunfan would run away with the money. She did not care about a measly 100,000 coins anyway. Moreover, they lived in a federal society. The Federation government could watch every corner in the country. If Chu Yunfan was planning to take the money, he would have to run to some secluded mountain forest, never to return. Otherwise, it was impossible that it would happen. To her, Chu Yunfan had an extraordinary aura. He was ambitious and would certainly have a bright future. He would not do something so dumb. That's great. Thank you, Ms. Lu. Chu Yunfan said. With that money, it would be much easier for him to break through to tier 0.7, blood renewal. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. Stop calling me Ms. Lu. My friends call me Yushu. You can call me that from now on. Lu Yushu said. Not far away, her bodyguard heard this. He could not help but have a slight change of expression and his eyes widened in disbelief. He had been protecting Lu Yushu for years. One could say that he had watched her grow up. He knew that the young mistress did not come across as arrogant, but in reality, she did not accept many people as her friends. Nevertheless, that was what happened to Chu Yunfan after just sparring with her for 2 hours. He could not help but look at the boy and wondered what was so special about him. I won't hold back then. I'll try my best to help you to break through to the perfection stage in that time. Chu Yunfan said. Although it was less than 2 hours, their series of battles was the equivalent of fighting many rounds with someone else due to the extremely packed and continuous bouts. He understood the devilish tiger punch a little more now, and he seemed to be nearing the perfection stage. He believed it would be easy to help Lu Yushu get to the perfection stage within a month. Meanwhile, he would definitely maximize their cultivation of the devilish tiger punch in order to get to the perfection stage himself. That'd be the best. I'll have a reward for you if I break through to the perfection stage. Lu Yushu said, "It's late. Let's end the sparring lesson today. You can leave after we've signed the contract. Just come around this time in the future." Got it. Chapter 16. Donghua City's #1 high schooler. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Yushu was quick with the money transfer. 100,000 coins were transferred directly to the bank account under Chu Yunfan's name. The sky was dark when Chu Yunfan got home. His father, Chu Wencheng, and mother, Yang Yayun, did not find it strange that he was late. He sent them a message earlier telling them that he was working that day and would be there 2 hours later. Students were much more independent and opinionated in the Kunlun era. Many kids from working-class families would get part-time jobs from a young age to pay for their living expenses, tuition fees, pocket money, and more. It was commonplace. Chu Yunfan had worked many part-time jobs over the past 2 years, so his parents were not worried. When he got home, his family had already finished dinner, but they left him some food. His mother Yang Yayun reheated the meal and served him. Chu Yunfan thought about his future plans as he ate. He had gotten the advance of 100,000 from Lu Yushu, but he did not plan to purchase the body refining pole with the money directly. He had checked online on the way home. He found he could purchase the herbs to refine the body refining pill on the market. The total would add up to around 50,000. The medicinal pill was usually sold at 100,000 as it included various agents' cuts and logistic costs. The most important one was the pill refinement fee paid to the alchemist. Until now, there was no way to mass-produce medicinal pills like other businesses. They had to be refined by humans, so the labor cost was high too. Of the 100,000 selling price, at least 20,000 was the alchemist's labor fee. Naturally, what was crucial was that Chu Yunfan had inherited the alchemy emperor's memories. He could say that he knew many pill refinement methods like the back of his hand. He could save the 20,000 labor fee if he refined it himself. Moreover, the body refining pill in his memory was different from the one that was popular now. It was a recipe that the alchemy emperor improved on back then. The effect was twice as great as the one sold on the market. Chu Yunfan was not dumb. Naturally, he knew how great a treasury the alchemy emperor's memory was to him. The improved recipe of the body refining pill alone could make one rich overnight. Although the medicinal pill was a basic one, there was a huge demand for it. It was particularly sought after because humans gave birth to so many children every year, and they needed body refining pills. Although most families could not afford it, the market for the wealthy was massive. Therefore, he was not worried that he would be lacking money in the future. As soon as he realized a portion of the alchemy emperor's memories were in his head, he knew it was enough to change his current situation. The only thing he lacked was time. What was urgent at the moment was the stream division exam a month later. It was the exam that would decide one's fate. Just as Lu Yushu had said, getting into the martial arts stream was not what they were after. There were regular classes and elite classes in number 13 high school's martial arts stream too. Although they were not as outstanding as the Calm Ocean City's #1 high school that Lu Yushu went to, the resources and coaches provided by the elite classes were far beyond those in the regular classes. However, he could not refine medicinal pills at home as he did not have the required alchemical furnace. Even the cheapest one would cost at least $1 million. The better ones would cost tens of millions and even up to 100 million. Meanwhile, the magic tool-grade alchemical furnace that was excavated would cost an astronomical price. The best way was to go to the Calm Ocean City branch of the Alchemist Association to borrow the alchemical furnace. Naturally, he would need to pay to rent it. The cheapest one would cost 5,000 per day. That was equivalent to 1 month of his parents' salary. Chu Yunfan felt his heart break when he considered the cost. Nonetheless, there was nothing else that he could do since his family could not afford to buy an alchemical furnace. That being the case, this was much better than buying a body refining pill directly. Meanwhile, Chu Qingxuan's bell-like laughter came from the living room, piquing Chu Yunfan's interest. Although she always seemed so sensible, whereby she tried her best to appear happy, it was rare that she would laugh so joyously. "Mom, Dad, brother, check this out. I made money today. I did a commentary on a competition and I got over 1,000 federal coins as a reward." In the living room, Chu Qingxian lifted her tiny head, and there was some pride on her face. Being ill since childhood, she was much more sensible than people her own age. She knew very well that her malady had placed a large burden on her family. Her little heart felt much better now that she could earn money on the internet to help with their expenses. "What kind of competition did you commentate on that paid you so much?" Chu Wenqing put down the tablet. Instead of watching the news, he looked at his daughter, feeling a little puzzled. His monthly salary was only a few thousand. Including the benefits provided by the company, it would add up to around 10,000. Meanwhile, his daughter was making over 1,000 coins commentating on a competition. That was more than the salary many adults made per month. Her mother, Yang Yayun, also said, "That's right. I went to check it out after you told us that you're doing commentaries on martial arts battles. I'm sure a newbie commentator like you would only make 1,000 to 2,000 per month." Although the guarantee of jobs for minors was high now, and there was nothing dangerous about doing virtual battle commentaries on the internet, her mother was worried. She had learned about the basics of the job. Just like most industries, this one had a wide range. Some top commentators would make up to 10 million annually, while it was pretty good for a newbie to make 1,000 to 2,000 per month. Some beginners might not even earn that much. Noticing her parents' worried faces, Chu Qingxian could not help but stick out her tongue and say, "It's usually not that much, but I did a commentary on a major competition yesterday. The number of spectators was 10 times more than the ones that I did in the past. Some of the audience thought I did a great job, so they gave me a reward." Relieved after hearing Chu Qingxuan's explanation, Chu Wenqing casually asked, "Whose competition had such a big audience?" "Dong Fanghao, the guy who is known as Donghua City's #1 high schooler now. You guys don't know how powerful he is. He challenged an energy refinement stage martial Dao powerhouse today. There were over 1 million people watching the battle in real time. I was just lucky that our website was one of those given the broadcast rights." Chu Qingxian explained. "Dong Fanghao has already reached the energy refinement stage." Chu Yunfan's voice came from the dining room to the living room. He could not help but feel shocked hearing what his sister said. Of course, he had heard of the name Dong Fanghao. There were up to 100 million people in Donghua City. It was one of the 10 base cities on Earth. There were many high school experts among them. Since Dong Fanghao was known as the #1 high schooler, one could imagine how fearsome he was. For instance, at number 13 high school, the 3 most capable people in class 11, Feng Dang, Tang Xiyu, and Gao Hongji, were only at tier 9 physical stage. The Qi Si stage would be after the physical stage, followed by the energy refinement stage. Such a cultivation base was already superior to that of most teachers in number 13 high school. Most of the teachers in number 13 high school, especially those from the liberal arts stream, only had a cultivation base at the Qi Si stage. Only some older teachers had energy refinement stage cultivation bases. That's right, he's incredibly powerful. Everyone was shocked today. Wasn't it rumored that Dong Fanghao was only at the peak of the Qi Si stage? He broke through to the energy refinement stage without telling anyone. I'm sure he'll be on the news for the next few days. Chu Qingxian said, however, I saw on the internet that our planet Earth is nothing. The truly powerful figures are in the Kunlun realm. The spirit energy in the Kunlun realm is 10 times thicker than on Earth. There are many powerhouses over there. Although there aren't many energy refinement stage high schoolers, there aren't that rare either. I thought it was a lie, but now it seems to be the truth. That's a genuinely powerful figure. If he's aiming to get into Federation University, he'll certainly be accepted. It's a sure thing. Chu Wenqing nodded and said. In truth, he did not really care. There were more and more geniuses among humans in recent years. There were so many of them, and they got stronger as generations went by. I remember over 100 years ago, if there were high schoolers who had a Chi C stage cultivation base, they could definitely get into one of the 10 top schools and even Federation University. Now Chi C stage students can't even get into ordinary universities. We humans are getting more and more powerful these days. Chu Qingxian nodded and said, of course. I saw on the internet that an expert said the journey that took us a century would have taken millennia in the time of the ancient Zenith civilization. We're advancing at a stunning speed every day. No matter Chu Wenqing or Chu Qingxian, they merely treated Dong Fanghao's achievement as an anecdote. To them, Dong Fanghao, the #1 high schooler, was just too far beyond them. On the other hand, it was different for Chu Yunfan. Although Dong Fanghao was so much stronger than he was now, it was hard to say if that would be the case in the future. Perhaps the Alchemy Emperor's memories had given him an intense will to fight that he never had before. He wanted to catch up to those people who might have just been legends to him in the past. In fact, he wanted to surpass them one by one. After chatting with his parents for a little bit, Chu Yunfan returned to his room. There was a task he needed to perform before heading to the Alchemist Association the next day. It was something that he had to do. Chapter 17. The Alchemist Association. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the ancient Zenith civilization, alchemy was a rare profession. One needed a wealth of knowledge, as well as a great number of resources, to support oneself. The major factions and sects were usually the only ones that could afford to sponsor alchemists. It was impossible even for talented alchemists to pick it up as soon as they began to refine medicinal pills. They could only familiarize themselves during the process of medicinal pill refinement. That was how they got elevated their capabilities. Meanwhile, it was a great expense for one to refine medicinal pills each time. Everything cost a lot of money, including the alchemical furnace, laboratory, medicinal pill recipes, herbs, and all sorts of inherited methods. Not just anyone could afford to provide that. It was the same in modern society. Although herbs could be planted on a large scale and alchemical furnaces could be mass-produced with modern technology, the number of alchemists was even lower than during the period from the Alchemy Emperor's memories. The reason for this was that modern alchemists did not have all their knowledge. In reality, it was not only alchemy that this happened to. Even the information on martial Tao was incomplete as well. It was because humans had only excavated a portion of the ruins of the ancient Zenith civilization for the moment. The martial Tao knowledge that was deciphered from the ruins could not compare to the time when the ancient Zenith civilization was flourishing, the time when many emperors battled in Chu Yunfan's inherited memories. Even so, the standard of martial Tao in modern times was not to be scoffed at. On the contrary, it was constantly improving, and there were always new ruins being excavated. More and more information from the ancient Zenith civilization was being uncovered. Therefore, the top human powerhouses were advancing at a stunning speed. Every 10 to 100 years, an elite powerhouse would break through to a brand new stage. They would soon discover cultivation methods suitable for one to do so. When the Kunlun era had just begun, only powerhouses in the military could reach the Chi C stage, but everyone could get there now. As long as one vigorously cultivated for decades, even the least talented person could break through to the Chi C stage. The discovery of the alchemy system came much later compared to the martial Tao system. The information had only been organized into a system 200 years ago. Therefore, although the Federation government supported the research with all of its might, its development was still relatively slow. To Chu Yunfan, who possessed the Alchemy Emperor's memories, the standard was low. It was far from the peak of the ancient Zenith civilization. That was not even comparing it to the genius Alchemy Emperor, the master of the field, in Chu Yunfan's mind. In the Federation, the Alchemist Association handled many matters related to alchemists. It was considered a semi-official association. Although the Federation government paid and provided for it, the association's president was the legendary alchemist, Du Qingtao, who was known as the Alchemy King. Du Qingtao was a free man among the people. He did not work for the Federation government. His alchemy skills were unparalleled throughout all humanity for the moment. Any of the medicinal pills that he refined would be fought over by countless wealthy people. The pills he refined had helped numerous powerhouses, so quite a few of them owed him a favor. Nobody dared to offend him for fear of facing the wrath of the great number of powerhouses supporting him. Additionally, he was a martial Dao powerhouse himself. Although Du Qingtao was not the strongest of them, he would always be chosen as one of the most influential people by the Federation government every year. Even the government was scared of the Alchemist Association that he led, so they dared not interfere with his business. The alchemists who joined would usually enjoy great benefits, including supplies of all sorts of herbs for pill refinement. They also had a large variety of ancient medicinal pill recipes. Given that it was a massive force, countless alchemists would flock to the association. Of course, not every alchemist would join the Alchemist Association. This was because, although there were a number of benefits, there were various restrictions as well. Some alchemists founded their own companies and made their own fortunes through them. Some worked for the Federation government, the Saint Lands, organizations, companies, and so on. Whether one decided to join the Alchemist Association or not, one would need to obtain the qualifications to be one. This meant they had to pass the test given by the Alchemist Association. Without passing the association's test, one could not even rent the alchemical furnace. If one was to work in the private sector, the Federation government, or some big companies, even without the Alchemist Association certification, they could purchase their own alchemical furnace and sufficient herbs to refine medicinal pills. Chu Yunfan did a little research on the way home that day. According to the documents given by the Alchemist Association, the certification was divided into categories, namely Alchemy Apprentice, Alchemy Trainee, Alchemist, and Alchemy Expert. Meanwhile, each category was divided into beginner level, intermediate level, and advanced level. Apart from the three levels, Du Qingtao was the only one who had reached the Alchemy King level. There were many registered alchemy apprentices as the qualifications for that category were relatively simple. They only had to master the refinement of a couple of simple medicinal pills. The body refining pill was one of them. Of course, although the recipe was said to have been widely available, the success rate of refinement differed between individuals. Naturally, Du Qingdao, the Alchemy King, had a success rate of 100% when refining body refining pills. Conversely, an apprentice's success rate was less than 10%, very low by any measure. For one to level up from an alchemy apprentice to an alchemy trainee, they would need to have at least 100 pill refinement attempts. That would cost at least 1,000,000 coins, which was beyond the means of ordinary people. To even achieve the 10% success rate of an alchemy apprentice, one would need to go through many attempts at hands-on pill refinements. There were only 3 to 5 students from the number 13 high school that Chu Yunfan went to who had obtained the alchemy apprentice license. All of those students came from wealthy families. His good friend Gao Hongji had enough wealth to support him in alchemy, but that was not his ambition. Not everyone had the talent for refining medicinal pills. That was not just for the lesser-known number 13 high school. Even the top schools like Calm Ocean City's number 1 high school only had a small portion of people who obtained the alchemy apprentice license. It was just that there were more of them than in the number 13 high school, and they were of better quality. Thus, those who obtained the alchemy apprentice license when they were still in high school were prized students. All modern universities had a faculty of alchemy that specialized in training those with the talent for it. Anyone who graduated from an alchemy faculty would be in great demand everywhere they went. The Federation government, the military, and the 9 Saint Lands needed such talents. High school students that got the license were practically guaranteed a spot in an ordinary university's alchemy faculty. It was a bonus if the pay managed to get into one of the top 10 schools. It was said that there were some students from the top schools in Donghua City who had obtained the alchemy trainee license when they were still in high school. They would assuredly pass the exam for the top 10 schools' alchemy faculties. Having such unique talents at a professional level would make them desirable to the Federation government. Meanwhile, most alchemists were wealthy or quickly became so. Even if they were poor before, they would grow rich overnight after becoming an alchemist. It was possible for a regular person to become an alchemist. It was just that it was clearly much more difficult for them compared to those who were born into wealthy families. Du Qingtao was one of the outstanding ones. He was born poor, and he chanced upon an inheritance from the ancient Zenith civilization. He started on the path of an alchemist and eventually became the famous alchemy king. Since founding the Alchemist Association, he promoted many reformations in the alchemy world, giving opportunities to numerous commoner alchemists who were struggling. Although most of the alchemists were born rich, the number of commoner alchemists was growing gradually. They were not to be underestimated. Most importantly, virtual alchemy software was launched on the virtual network. Relying on the conditions and situations of simulated alchemy on the network, even commoners could learn basic alchemy. It was only virtual and could not compare to the speed of hands. On practice. However, it was enough to determine whether one had the talent. If someone was talented, the Alchemist Association would pay attention to them no matter their financial situation. The talented ones might even be trained by the Alchemist Association. A lot of large companies and groups would recruit people in that manner. Although these people were nobodies, the major factions were willing to provide them with sufficient resources to advance. That being said, the price was signing an employment contract with their sponsor. After they graduated, they would need to work for them. It might be the only way for the commoners to stand out. Although it was plainly unfair, such an opportunity was the best option available to the commoners. Due to the virtual alchemy software, the potential apprentices could take the test on the virtual network instead of dropping by the Alchemist Association themselves. There was no restriction as to what kind of medicinal pills they wanted to refine in the future, at least for alchemy apprentices. Those who did not obtain the license would be illegal and were not protected by the Federation government. Meanwhile, the test for trainees would have to be done at the Alchemist Association, since an alchemy trainee was considered an official alchemist. It was different for alchemy apprentices, given that they were just beginners after all. Chu Yunfan got the virtual glasses used for the virtual network in the Kunlun era. It was a necessity for everyone in modern society, just like a personal computer in the Common Era. Of course, he was using the old version from 10 years back. It was said that the latest version could have the network terminal equipment installed under one's skin, allowing one to surf the virtual network anytime. Chapter 18. Passing the Alchemist Test. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Yunfan turned on the device after putting on the virtual glasses. The scene before him changed suddenly, and he appeared in a crude space. It was the default landing everyone would arrive in every time they logged into the virtual network. Everything seemed so lifelike, but only his consciousness was in it. It was said that the virtual network could not have been created before. Even if it had been, it would not have been like what he was feeling, as if he was in another world. People could even fight in it just like in the real world. It did not exist over 100 years ago, but it was said that people found ancient Zenith civilization ruins during the process of moving to the Kunlun realm a century in the past. They discovered a magic tool within the ruins and created the virtual network using the tool's power. The virtual network currently covered the entire world and the human-based cities in the Kunlun realm. One could go online whenever one desired. Chu Yunfan had no idea what kind of magic tool it was. That was the confidential secret of the human government. Although it was a secret that everyone knew, they officially did not admit such a tool existed, making it even more mysterious. Everyone would register an account when they were young. The account would be the only one they would have, and it was tied to their identity. They would be scanned every time they connected to the virtual network. Their abilities would be reflected within the network. It would mean that Chu Yunfan would also be at Tier 6 physical stage, joint popping in the virtual network, just like what he was in real life. It was no different from reality. This could not have been done with technology. It was only made possible by that mysterious magic tool. However, there were restrictions on such recreations in the virtual world. Under normal circumstances, only the physical stage would be recreated. Those at the Qi-Si stage, the energy refinement stage, or even the acquired stage and the innate stage would need to pay a fee to reflect their capabilities from reality in the virtual world. The greater one's abilities were, the higher the required fees. The cost was practically astronomical for those who were supremely powerful, but the powerhouses who could cultivate to that stage could most probably afford that. The official explanation was that a lot of energy was required for the scanner to rebuild the body that accurately reflected real life in the virtual world. Therefore, anyone wanting a perfect recreation in cyberspace needed to pay, like Dong Fanghao who did martial arts battles in the virtual world. When Chu Yunfan first learned of him, he was not amazed by his energy refinement stage level but by his wealth. He was only stunned by Dong Fanghao's incredible abilities later on. After arriving at the default landing, Chu Yunfan did not choose to log out. Instead, he clicked on the virtual assistant and downloaded a software called the Alchemy Assistant. It was the software that Du Qingtao had launched. However, it did not come cheap, costing 5,000 coins. Although it was targeted at commoners, Chu Yunfan felt some pain when he purchased it. If Lu Yushu had not paid him 100,000 that day, he could not have downloaded the software. Overall, it was value for money. If it had not been, software that cost 5,000 coins would not have survived and continued thriving for so long. Moreover, it had been improved and upgraded countless times over the years. Its current state was considered to be perfect. A couple of seconds later, the Alchemy Assistant finished downloading. Chu Yunfan clicked on it and the environment around him suddenly changed. He had appeared in an alchemy laboratory. The lab was simple, no more than a basic room with an alchemical furnace in the middle. There was a cushion for someone to sit on in front of the furnace and nothing else. One would have to purchase the herbs to refine medicinal pills. Although it was just virtual data, those herbs did not come free. They had to be bought from the shop through the Alchemy Assistant. Naturally, the price was up to 100 times cheaper than the real thing. However, the cost would be terrifyingly high if one refined medicinal pills repeatedly. Given that there were so many users, nobody knew how much the owner of the software, Alchemy King Du Qingtao, had made throughout the years. Although there were some hints of profiteering in the software, it was good enough for commoners. At least it provided a path for talented people to have a chance to stand out. In reality, there were even many wealthy alchemy apprentices who liked using the Alchemy Assistant to refine medicinal pills. Although the experience gained could not be compared to reality, the deciding factor was that it was cheap. It was a prudent choice to refine real medicinal pills only after practicing in the virtual network. Money did not grow on trees, even for wealthy people. Chu Yunfan did not choose the pill refinement practice. Instead, he went directly to the option below, the Alchemy Apprentice Test. To regular alchemists, they would need many practice runs to be familiar with it and understand it. In his case, he already had that since he obtained the Alchemy Emperor's memories. He had to admit that the Alchemy Emperor was indeed a genius in alchemy. He was much more skilled than the current greatest alchemist on earth, Alchemy King Du Qingtao. Is this the first time you're taking the test? Considering that you've never taken any tests before, you'll have to take the beginner-level alchemy apprentice test. The test fee is 1,000 coins, robotic voice said into Chu Yunfan's ears. To prevent people from just trying their luck, there was a fee for each alchemist license test. The more advanced it was, the higher the fee. Begin the test. Chu Yunfan chose that without any hesitation. Random test question has begun. There was a ringing sound, and then a screen was projected before Chu Yunfan. Please refine a beginner-level flow state pill. You have 2 hours. Subsequently, a bunch of herbs appeared around Chu Yunfan. Clearly, they were the herbs to refine the beginner-level flow state pill. At that moment, the information about the flow state pill emerged in his head. Meditation was the first step in a martial artist's cultivation. It was the root and the beginning of internal energy, but not everyone could go into the flow state easily. Many people would spend a long time getting rid of the thoughts in their minds before they could begin to cultivate in peace. A lot of time would be wasted in the process. Moreover, there was a big difference within meditation. The deeper the meditation was, the better the result. It helped cut the rigors of cultivation in half. That was how the flow state pill came about. It could help one get into the flow state quickly. The pill could induce the flow state in someone in just a moment. The flow state pill was categorized into beginner-level, intermediate-level, and advanced-level. Beginner-level flow state pills were cheap at only 5,000 coins each. Although it was rather expensive to regular people, they could still afford it. However, an intermediate-level flow state pill would cost 100,000, and an advanced-level flow state pill would be up to 1 million. Not only could it help one to get into the flow state, but the flow state pill could also augment one's body if consumed for a long time. However, even most rich people could not afford to spend such money. Regular people would need the flow state pill to help with cultivation. His cousin, Chu Yuntian, consumed the flow state pill regularly, which cut his cultivation time in half. Getting into the flow state used to be a major issue each time he cultivated. In 2 hours of cultivation, he would spend at least an hour getting into the flow state in order to clear his mind and cultivate attentively. However, it was different now. He felt that each time he got into the flow state whenever he cultivated was better than consuming the legendary advanced-level flow state pill. As soon as he got into the cultivation mode, he would focus immediately. It was amazing. He could save a lot of time and money from that alone. However, Chu Yunfan did not need it. His parents and sister did. After he made enough money and got his sister treated, he would refine flow state pills for them so that they could cultivate. He had never refined any medicinal pills. He actually never learned anything about it since alchemy was elective and not mandatory in school. Only a fraction of students with money and time would take it. He did not even have time for cultivation, so he certainly would not have time to take the alchemy course. This was because he knew that he would not stand out in the industry. Nevertheless, Chu Yunfan started the alchemical furnace. When the fire was burning, a familiar feeling spread through his body. One would understand everything by understanding the underlying principle. The modern alchemical furnace had a fire state underneath it instead of requiring would be used as in the ancient Zenith civilization. Though the furnace was modern, the familiar feeling made him master the pill refinement quickly. He added water, lit and added fuel to the fire, and added all sorts of herbs. The process was smooth as silk to Chu Yunfan, as if he had practiced it tens of millions of times. He did not pause or hesitate at all. He knew when to add fuel to the fire, how big of a fire it should be, when to add the herbs, and how much to add. Those were not in the recipe. The recipe only had the combination of the most basic herbs and the basic process. The called secret inheritance was not detailed. It was the thing that all alchemists passed down verbally through generations. Regular alchemists could only learn to refine medicinal pills with the highest efficiency after practicing it for many years. In modern times, they would not be as narrow-minded as they were in the ancient Zenith civilization. Back then, they would take their secrets to the grave with them. There were still many uncertainties since the alchemist system had only been excavated and documented for 200 years. It was far behind compared to the masters of the alchemist system in the ancient Zenith civilization, such as the Alchemy Emperor in Chu Yunfan's memory. An hour later, the medicinal pill was successfully refined. Boiling steam spread out, and one could even smell the pill's fragrance. Congratulations, you've successfully refined the flow state pill. You've obtained the Alchemist Association's beginner-level alchemy apprentice certification. Please head over to the local Alchemist Association to pick up your license. Chapter 19. Leveling up consecutively, the body refining pill was done. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, after successfully refining the pill, Chu Yunfan had passed the beginner-level alchemy apprentice test. Nevertheless, he was unsatisfied and planned to take further tests. Following the Alchemist Association's rules, the tests that could be done through the virtual network stopped at advanced-level alchemy apprentice certification. If one wanted to become a legitimate alchemist, they would have to take the test at the Alchemist Association. According to the rules set by the Federation government, alchemy apprentices could only refine medicinal pills for themselves. Only legitimate alchemists, those who had at least trainee certification, could sell the pills they refined to others. When one was still an alchemy apprentice, they were merely giving instead of receiving any rewards. On the other hand, as soon as one became an official alchemist, they could sell the medicinal pills that they refined on the network. At that point, they could recover some of their costs. The higher the level of an alchemist, the more they would make. As soon as one passed the alchemy trainee test and became an official alchemist, they were basically an honored guest by all factions. Within Calm-Sea City's population of up to 10 million, very few of them had the qualifications to become an official alchemist. One could only find intermediate-level alchemists in Donghua City. An alchemist at such a level was basically a tycoon with a net worth of 100 million and great influence. Being on the path of alchemy was in Chu Yunfan's plan. Regular people would need to practice many times in order to pass the test, but he did not have such concerns. Given the situation, he would rather take all of the tests at once. Therefore, he hesitated no more and clicked on the alchemy assistant to register for the intermediate-level alchemy apprentice test. After the beginner-level alchemy apprentice test, the intermediate test required that he refine one more medicinal pill. It was merely a basic medicinal pill, so it was very easy. To Chu Yunfan, who inherited the Alchemy Emperor's memories, it was as easy as drinking and eating. You've obtained the Alchemist Association's intermediate-level alchemy apprentice certification. Please head over to the local Alchemist Association to pick up your license. Immediately after obtaining the intermediate-level alchemy apprentice certification, Chu Yunfan began the advanced-level alchemy apprentice test. Just like the intermediate test, the advanced test only required one more medicinal pill refinement. Although only one more basic medicinal pill refinement was needed, as he did the refinement continuously, it was actually pretty difficult for newbies who had just gotten familiar with alchemy. In Chu Yunfan's case, it was nothing complicated. He merely followed the steps of adding herbs, fire, and water. He completed it with ease. You've obtained the Alchemist Association's advanced-level alchemy apprentice certification. Please head over to the local Alchemist Association to pick up your license. After obtaining the intermediate-level and advanced-level alchemy apprentice certifications consecutively, Chu Yunfan logged out of the virtual network. It was already 5 a.m. when he checked the time. His parents would wake up 2 hours later, but he had yet to sleep. Instead, he began to meditate. He realized now that since his body had been modified by the mysterious energy, he would be energetic for the whole day after meditating for an hour. He read on the network that it was a deep sleep. Regular people could only maintain their energy the next day after sleeping for 8 hours. However, if one could maintain a deep sleep for the long run, one could replenish the sleep that the human body needed with minimum deep sleep. Meanwhile, being in the flow state in meditation was his equivalent to deep sleep. He could seize the opportunity to cultivate with the mighty Eternal Emperor method. It was no wonder that the method was an amazing one. He realized that the power he could gain by cultivating with the mighty Eternal Emperor method was a few times greater than before. It had halved the time he needed. As it was, he ended the cultivation after meditating for an hour. It was because he was too hungry. In the modern cultivation theory, they determined that the true energy coming from internal energy cultivation was bioenergy. In other words, the amount of true energy one produced from cultivation would be the amount of energy one had exhausted. Therefore, it was hard for regular people to cultivate for a long time because they would starve. Moreover, the cultivation efficiency of the mighty Eternal Emperor method was several times greater than regular methods. It would mean that it was equivalent to cultivating for a few hours at once. Chu Yunfan was considering whether he should purchase some elixir that replenished one's energy. Such elixirs were tasteless and colorless. They were created by distilling a large amount of food countless times. It was a miracle only possible with modern technology. When the Kunlun era had just begun, the cultivators were all big eaters. These days, they could rely entirely on elixirs. One tube would be enough energy to last the entire day. That being said, this elixir was expensive, costing up to 1,000 coins per tube. If a martial artist was cultivating, they would need a few tubes per day. The accumulated sum would be terrifying. Due to the technology explosion, modern society had found solutions to the difficulties faced in the ancient Zenith civilization. Even commoners had access to it, as long as they had the money. He definitely could not afford it in the past. However, now that he was Lu Yushu's private coach, he made 6,000 per day. He could still afford that. With such an energy elixir, his cultivation speed would have a significant elevation. Early in the morning, right after finishing breakfast and informing his family, Chu Yunfan left home. He took the bus to get to the Alchemist Association. His family was rather poor, so the place they lived was considered a secluded part of Calm Sea City. On the other hand, the Grand Alchemist Association would naturally be in the city center. After riding the bus for an hour, Chu Yunfan had finally arrived at the crowded city center of Calm Sea City. Although the city with a population of up to 10 million was nothing in the Kunlun era, it would definitely be considered an international metropolis back in the Common Era. It was already crowded although it was only morning. Many regular office workers from the urban district had come there to work. Numerous well-known organizations and companies were located in the city center. Very soon, Chu Yunfan found the Alchemist Association with the help of GPS. At that moment, there was already a queue and crowds at the association. Many people would go there to ask for help, while others had come a long way to purchase medicinal pills. The common medicinal pills were sold cheaper at the Alchemist Association. There were also many high-grade pills that were unavailable elsewhere. Very soon, an Alchemist Association attendant saw Chu Yunfan and asked, "How can I help you, sir? I'd like to refine medicinal pills. I wonder where do I register myself to rent your alchemy lab?" Chu Yunfan saw and asked directly. He had never been to the Alchemist Association, so he had no idea what kind of procedures there would be. You'll need the certification of a beginner-level alchemy apprentice or above to rent the alchemy lab at our Alchemist Association, the attendant said after glancing at Chu Yunfan. He was rather doubtful for no reason other than Chu Yunfan looking too young. "Of course I have the qualifications, but I took the tests on the network. I didn't come here before to pick up my license," he said to the attendant. Naturally, Chu Yunfan knew what he was doubtful about. "That won't be a problem. It's recorded in our database as long as you got the certification on the network. I'll take a look later since it's tied to your citizen identity." The attendant said swiftly. Sure, show me the way. Chu Yunfan said, oh yeah, order the herbs I need as well. Sure. You can reserve the herbs on the network. After you've booked the alchemy lab, someone will send them over to you, the attendant replied immediately. The attendant brought a tablet over. There were all sorts of herbs listed on it along with their prices. Chu Yunfan picked the herbs quickly while walking. The price was roughly the same as what he saw on the network. Since it came from the Alchemist Association, the herb's quality was guaranteed. The attendant took the tablet and looked. He had been working at the Alchemist Association for some years, so he could determine what pill would be refined from the herbs the alchemists ordered. Although it was slightly different, he could tell that Chu Yunfan was refining a body refining pill. He was secretly surprised. Only intermediate-level alchemy trainees and above would have the ability to refine body refining pills. Meanwhile, the man before him appeared so young. He did not seem like an intermediate-level alchemy trainee at all. Nevertheless, since he had been working at the Alchemist Association for some years, he knew what to ask and what not to. He turned around immediately and sorted things out for Chu Yunfan. Very soon, an alchemy lab was prepared, and even the medicinal herbs Chu Yunfan ordered were sent. Indeed, the Alchemist Association was efficient in this aspect. After entering the lab, Chu Yunfan wasted no time. He lit the fire for the alchemical furnace and added water. Very soon, the water in the furnace came to a boil. He began to grab a bunch of the herbs in a pile and tossed them into the furnace. He had integrated the Alchemy Emperor's memories entirely, as if he had performed refinement himself many times. He knew how many herbs to grab, just like a master who had years of experience. To an alchemist, those were the basics. One could roughly tell the year and place of the herb's production from a glance. It was elementary. Conversely, modern alchemists would not practice that since they used advanced technology. They had digital scales anyway, as well as alchemy apprentices to assist them. Everything from when to add the herbs, categorization, weighing, and cutting was done by the apprentice. Chu Yunfan's skills were as smooth as flowing water each time he added water and herbs. There was nothing to criticize at all. The process of pill refinement was boring, so Chu Yunfan decided to meditate. He waited for the pill refinement to complete while meditating. Very soon, an hour had passed. The charming fragrance of the pill spread out from the cauldron. At the same time, the alchemical furnace was opening gradually. A brownish-yellow medicinal pill slowly rolled out of the opening. Chu Yunfan did not even have to open his eyes, as he knew that the body refining pill had been successfully refined just from the scent alone. Chapter 20. Breaking Through, Blood Renewal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He had refined the body refining pill. If someone from the alchemy industry were there, they would notice that the fragrance of Chu Yunfan's body refining pill was many times thicker than most. It meant that the efficacy of Chu Yunfan's pill was exponentially better than the body refining pills sold on the market. It was the body refining pill that was created according to the Alchemy Emperor's superior recipe. As such, some of the herbs had been replaced, and the refinement method was slightly different as well. Although the changes seemed insignificant on the surface, it would be an improvement. It would be something else if all the herbs were changed. This was because, whether it was medicinal pills that refined one's body or precious herbs, the body refining pill was not the only one available. In that case, why was it so popular? It was mostly because the price of the body refining pill was considered pocket-friendly. It was suitable for most commoners, and it was value for money. If one was to replace the recipe with higher quality herbs, it could definitely elevate the effect significantly, but the price would shoot up too. This made the Alchemy Emperor's improved body refining pill precious. In fact, when the Alchemy Emperor had refined the alchemical process, he had upgraded many medicinal pills. He elevated the effect of the pills significantly without changing the recipe too much, and he organized them into a book. Unfortunately, before he could promote it to the whole world, the battle between the gods broke out, and he died on the battlefield. Chu Yunfan took out the medicinal pill from the alchemical furnace. It was almost noon at the moment. Figuring that he had rented the alchemy lab for the entire day, he did not leave just yet. He treated the place as a cultivation room. He sat on the cushion with his legs crossed. Positioning himself for meditation, he swallowed the body refining pill. He began to circulate the mighty Eternal Emperor method immediately to refine the effect of the body refining pill. Warmth streamed from Chu Yunfan's pill, rushing into his limbs and bones. The cultivation of the physical stage, as the name suggested, was the development of one's physical body. The body refining pill was a medicinal pill that was created for this. It was most effective when consumed at the physical stage. In truth, there were benefits to refining the body at any stage, but the effect was not as great. Almost immediately, popping sounds came from Chu Yunfan's body as if there were firecrackers inside him. All his muscles were wriggling. The sound was being made by his bones rubbing against each other. The most important factor when cultivating at the physical stage was refining one's body, not elevating one's power. Blood renewal would come after tier 0.6 physical stage, joint popping. It was the last tier that required a lot of body refinement in the physical stage and was considered a minor achievement. Additionally, it was also the stage of rebirth. As more and more medicine spread through his limbs and bones, it was helping his body renew itself continuously. Dense sweat began to form on his skin. The sweat did not stop dripping, and Chu Yunfan was soon drenched, as if he had just been pulled out of water. Just then, it quickly changed from sweat to a black substance. It was flowing together with the sweat at first, but the black substance swiftly became the only thing oozing from his body. In the blink of an eye, that black substance covered Chu Yunfan entirely. There was even black blood seeping through his pores. The process was painful, as if someone was tearing his body apart. If this happened in the past, the pain would have kept Chu Yunfan from meditating. This time, he seemed calm. The torture he went through when he received the inheritance was much more agonizing than this. His mentality could not be compared to how it was before. The most difficult tier to cultivate to in the physical stage was blood renewal. Blood renewal did not mean that one's blood would be replaced entirely, but reborn from one's physical body. People in the past said that one would not share the real methods, as most people had a regular body. Not just anyone could go on the path of cultivation. Therefore, the first step of cultivation was to shed the regular body and be reborn. In ancient Tao cultivation, it was called the innate Tao body. Only people who had achieved that qualified to cultivate. There were restrictions in ancient times, so cultivation depended on one's luck. Some people were born with clear meridians, which made them a good seedling for cultivation. Only those people could cultivate, while regular people had no chance of turning their fate around. This was also the reason why it was hard to find an heir. Therefore, the cultivation that flourished in ancient China for a time gradually died out. It was the limitation of the era. Conversely, in modern times, people had the ability to turn their lives around. A man's determination could conquer nature. It wasn't sure how long had passed, but Chu Yunfan finally opened his eyes when he was completely covered in the pitch-black substance and blood. The odor was foul and one could no longer see his face. The stinging pain he had felt had gone away. On the contrary, he had a good, refreshing feeling all over his body. He felt as light as a feather. It was a genuine rebirth. Chu Yunfan was covered in the black substance, but he was not surprised. He knew very well what would happen during blood renewal. As it was, the black substance covering his body had a terrible smell. Chu Yunfan got out immediately and took a shower at the Alchemist Association's bathhouse. After he had showered and washed his clothes with the vacuum washing machine, it was afternoon when he checked. He had been meditating the whole time, and he had been hungry for a while. In any case, he could not be bothered by that. He had to coach Lu Yushu first. He got out immediately and hailed a cab. He was heading to Lu Yushu's house. Since it was his second time there, Chu Yunfan walked into the training room Lu Yushu used under the black-clothed bodyguard's guidance. At that moment, Lu Yushu was alone in the sparring zone. She wore a weighted vest that was used as training equipment. When one got used to training with such a vest, their will in battle would increase significantly after taking it off. That was also the reason why many wealthy people loved buying cultivation equipment. It was impossible in ancient times, and it was rare in the ancient Zenith civilization. These days, with the help of modern mass production, one could even adjust the gravity on the weighted vest according to their preference. A regular weighted vest could increase the gravity fivefold at most. Even a regular weighted vest cost millions, so ordinary families could not afford it. Nevertheless, Chu Yunfan knew she was not one of the richest. Those who were even wealthier would make the entire training room into a gravity chamber. The effect from cultivating in it would be even better than putting on a weighted vest. Since Lu Yushu wore that vest, her movements were clearly not as agile as she usually was. She was rather slow and there was a heavy sound every time she landed on the ground. Fortunately, the ground in the sparring zone was reinforced. Otherwise, it would have collapsed from all the heavy steps. Very soon, Lu Yushu stopped. She took off the weighted vest while panting. Her sweaty hair stuck to her fair forehead. She was no longer as intimidating as she was before. Instead, she looked like the girl next door. She glanced at Chu Yunfan and said, "You're here. Give me a second, please." Subsequently, she took out a bottle of energy elixir from the medical box. When she consumed it, the effect was very obvious. Lu Yushu stopped panting almost immediately. She had stopped sweating too. The strength she exhausted from the intense punch training had replenished in mere moments. Suddenly, a growling noise came from Chu Yunfan's stomach. After appearing so calm, he could not help but blush. The half a day of cultivation which made him break through to blood renewal had drained him of almost all his energy. It was not the usual hunger, whereby your body was reminding you to eat. In reality, a person had energy reserves, but the hunger caused by such cultivation sent an intense craving throughout the body. Across from him, Lu Yushu could not help but smile. She then took another bottle of energy elixir from the medical box on the side and tossed it at Chu Yunfan. "Were you cultivating earlier? Replenish your energy or you might not be able to fight with all of your strength when training later." Lu Yushu was generous. "Alright, thanks. Deduct it from my coaching fee." Chu Yunfan was not shameless. Indeed, he needed the energy elixir to replenish his strength. He would have to buy it if he did not get it from Lu Yushu, so it made no difference anyway. After drinking a bottle of energy elixir, Chu Yunfan felt the hunger all over his body disappear. He was filled with energy. Compared to drinking an energy elixir, refueling by eating was too slow and inefficient. He could not help but exclaim inwardly that there were just too many cultivation aids for the wealthy. Even if they were not especially talented, the cultivation results of the rich would far surpass the commoners. "Alright, face my fists. I came to understand something today. You happen to be here for me to try it out." Lu Yushu yelled in a girly manner and pounced at Chu Yunfan like a tiger that was charging from a mountain. It had some of a tiger's strength, the sign of the elevated power of the devilish tiger punch. However, Chu Yunfan was not afraid at all. He threw a punch out too with some tiger strength of his own. It was even more intense than what Lu Yushu had. Bang! Their two fists collided. Chu Yunfan remained still, while Lu Yushu took a few steps back before she managed to steady herself. Instead of being stunned, she was quite happy as she said, "Have you broken through to blood renewal? That's so fast. No wonder you were starving. I supposed you cultivated the entire day. That's great. I'll punch even harder now." Her aura elevated significantly as she spoke. Chu Yunfan was only on joint popping before, so she had limited her power to the same stage. Since Chu Yunfan had broken through, she unleashed a little more of her strength. Alright, let's go again. I'd like to see how much I've improved. Chu Yunfan charged forward instead of retreating, rising to the challenge. The duo fought intensely again,